everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are doing a currently reading update to chat about what I've been reading recently. I feel like I've been having a relatively good reading month so far. I have DNF'd a couple of books so far, but I also have read a few that I have really been enjoying, so that's really good. I also recently had one of those times, I don't know if this happens to you guys, where I was like in the middle of multiple books, like 3 or 4 books at the same time, and I had been reading all of them for a while and then just like finished all of them in the span of like 2 days or something, which like is always very satisfying to be like, wow, I just finished so many books in like 2 days. But it's like, that's because you've been reading these books for like 3 weeks. Like, you know, it's not like I'm reading the book so fast. But also sometimes I kind of wish that I had spaced them out, because I do get it makes me happy to finish a book, and so it would be more fun to like space out the happiness of like finishing books, you know. But either way, I've been reading more books recently and I'm excited about that. So we'll jump into the book that I finished most recently, which is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is her newest release. It is a sci-fi novella that is, I believe, the beginning of a series that is following a tea monk and a robot. So in this, we start out following this monk who has lived their whole life as a garden monk, and then I think in their like late 20s or something, they're kind of having a like quarter life crisis and decide that they need to become a tea monk. They need to like make a change and do something different with their life. So they become a tea monk, which is this person who travels around and listens to people's problems and gives people tea and comforts them. So they take up this new vocation with no training or anything and really just have to kind of figure out what they're doing, and they do that for a little while until they kind of reach a point where they realize like that's not exactly what they needed. There's something else, and they decide they need to even like strike out on their own even more and go out into the wilderness. So they do that, and along the way they encounter a robot. So in this world's like history, I don't know, like 200 years ago or something, robots gained like consciousness or like sentience, and so because of that they parted ways from humans, and humans essentially agreed to like not bother the robots, to not contact them, and just let them live their lives out in the wilderness. So there really hasn't been any contact between the humans and the robots in like 200 years or something, and this is the first time that humans and robots have met. And so the two of them end up traveling together, and they're kind of like getting to know each other and learning about each other and each other's like cultures and way of life and all of that. And the book does get a little bit like philosophical, and you know, I think it is very similar in a lot of ways to Becky Chambers' other books, in that it has this very like gentle, soft kind of sci-fi that's a very optimistic and inclusive view of the future, and brings up some of these more like philosophical questions, which I do enjoy those elements of her books. So I've read 2 of her books in her Wayfarer series, and I always think they're like fine, but I don't love them. But I enjoyed this one a lot more, I think partially because I love that there's like a tea monk. I like the relationship between the monk and the robot and how they're just like learning about each other. And I like the setting that they're like going through the forest and the wilderness. But also I think it works better for me that this is a novella. With Becky Chambers' books, with her longer books, sometimes I get a little bit like, where is this going? Why are you telling me about this? Like, there isn't much plot to them, and even though I'm not really a plot-driven reader, I still get a little bit that like, what's happening here? Like, why are you telling me this? Which is less of an issue with a novella, because one, it is so short, and also my expectations of a novella and, you know, what I'm going to get out of it, how much plot it's going to have, all of that is different. So I think that Becky Chambers may be more of a like novella author for me, but I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. Then my current read, so I have my current physical read is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is the book that you all voted for me to read in my autumn poll. There we go. For some reason those words were like not coming to mind. So I just started this the other day. I've only read like 20 pages of it, so I'm not that far in, but those 20 pages were really good. Really, the first chapter really just like sucked me in right away. I've liked the writing in this a lot. I find it just really engaging and easy to read and easy to get just really like sucked into it. So I am hoping that that will keep up and that I will be able to just like fly through this. At this point, I still don't really know what this book is about. I went into it knowing very little other than we are following like the daughter of a king who they have bone shard magic, which has something to do with where they use shards of bone to animate constructs and they can like kind of program them with commands. But for some reason, I think from an illness, she has lost her memory. And so her father, the king, refuses to teach her the bone shard magic because he doesn't think that she'll be able to rule. That's about all I know about this, other than that people have been raving about this book. But I'm really excited to get more into it, and I just really hope that I continue to love it because, again, only read 20 pages, but I really liked those 20 pages, so I'm feeling very optimistic. Then the other book that I am currently reading is my audiobook, which is The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, who I believe is the same author that wrote Never Let Me Go, which I haven't read. I think I saw the movie once, but I've never read their books. But this one stood out to me. I came across it on Libby because it is set in a like post-Arthurian Britain where there is this mist moving across the land that causes people to lose their memories. And in this, we're following this older couple, and they and their community, a lot of people around them, have been slowly losing their memories, but they do remember eventually that they have a son who lives in another village, and they decide to set out to find him. And so we're following the two of them as they are trying to make their way to their son's village to visit him, and they're kind of losing their memories along the way. So this one stood out to me for a few reasons. One, because it's in like a post-Arthurian Britain, which is a time period setting that appeals to me, and also it has to do with memory. So those are two things that definitely like stand out to me and make me interested in a book. So having them together, I was like, oh, I should definitely try this. And my library had the audiobook ready to borrow right away. So I'm pretty early on in this one also. I'm about 7% of the way into the book. I've listened to about an hour of it. And so far I am liking it. I'm not necessarily like loving it, but I'm definitely interested. I'm very curious to see where it goes and what it has to say about memory and kind of what angle he's going to take with this. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the other book that I'm currently reading. Then for what I'm going to be reading next, so my next physical read is going to be Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. I'm buddy reading this with Cara, and we're going to be starting it soon. So I need to finish The Bone Shard Daughter before I start this. I might not be able to, but I'm hoping that if I love this enough, I will just like speed through it and be able to like start this. But if I'm reading them at the same time, like that will also be fine. But yeah, so this is a YA fantasy that's the beginning of a series where it is following this girl who I believe is able to like talk to ghosts or maybe control ghosts, and she, I think, is one of the only people who has had this power in a very long time. And so they send her to the Forest of Souls, I guess, which is this sort of dark forest that's inhabited by ghosts and ruled by the Spider King. And so she has to go like work with the Spider King. Clearly, I don't remember a whole lot about the synopsis. I just remember when I read it, when I got the book, it sounded interesting and it has a dark forest. That's all I got. I have heard some very like mixed or lukewarm reviews of this, so I'm not sure if this is gonna be one I love, but I definitely want to at least give it a try because dark magical forest, like, I have to at least give it a shot. So this is my next physical read. Then in terms of my next audiobooks, actually this one might be a mix of physical read and audiobook, but I have a nonfiction book, which is The Burnout Epidemic, The Rise of Chronic Stress and How We Fix It by Jennifer Moss. So I think I mentioned, maybe it was in my last currently reading video, that I'm doing some research about burnout. So I read a different book earlier this month that was called Burnout, which was taking more of like an individual, like a look more like how individuals deal with burnout. And I just got this book just recently came out, I think, maybe in September. And this is looking at burnout as more of a, I guess, systemic issue and how organizations can support employees to prevent burnout and things like that. That's my impression. I haven't started this one yet, but I'm very excited to read it. I think this is probably going to be a mix of audiobook and physical read because I definitely want to physically read parts of it, but I can also get the audiobook on Scribd, so that's exciting. This is a lot shorter than I was expecting. I haven't even hauled this yet, but it's only like 250 pages and I was expecting it to be much chunkier. So this is a book that I'm also going to be reading soon. And then I also was thinking of reading, let me find the book, In the Vanishers Palace by Aliette de Bodard. Is that how you pronounce her name? That might be wrong because it might be French and I may have pronounced that wrong. I'm gonna have to look up how to pronounce her name. But it is a novella that I don't really remember what it's about, but I think that there's a person who is a healer in it. That is, oh, and I think there's a dragon, maybe? I don't know. I just know that it's a book that I've had in the back of my mind that I wanted to read for a while. I think I'm gonna try it as a audiobook. I had the ebook out from my library for a while and I don't know, I couldn't get into the ebook, so I was thinking maybe I'll just try audiobook and see if that works better. But I've really been wanting to try this author's books at some point, so I thought I would try this one. So those are all the books that I am currently reading and what I'm planning to read next. I'd love to know what you have been reading. How has your reading in October been going? But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!